Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. And we're live. And I am so excited to introduce today's guest. We're going to learn so many things from her. She's a very, very experienced marketing thought leader. And when I say experienced, she is a career B2B marketer. And she's worked with all the different sizes and shapes of companies, from the Fortune 100 with the large budgets and staff, all the way to startups and those small companies trying to find their place in the world. Very excited to introduce her. She's the Chief Marketing Officer at Sitecore. Paige O'Neill, how are you?
Hey, I'm absolutely fabulous. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes.
Very excited.
Yes, I know, and we're ready to smash some things. So the theme for today, it's our marketing leadership series, learning from senior CMOs about marketing strategy, tactics, technology. And so here it is. I'm going to pass this over to you. It's very heavy. This is Thor's hammer. So go ahead and take that hammer, and I want you to smash for me some kind of bogus marketing strategy or just some misconceptions you're hearing out there that just drive you crazy. Set the record straight once and for all.
All right, I hear I'm supposed to hit the table as I do this, so
Yes.
I'm going to do that, and I'm just going to. So I'm going to smash a technology-related myth that I've been hearing this all over the place recently, and it's just been driving me crazy. So I've got to clear the air on this one. You ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So there seems to be a myth that artificial intelligence is going to be just this panacea, holy grail, and suddenly AI is going to arrive on the scene and marketers can just kind of kick back, take their shoes off, and we're not going to really have to do the hard work of marketing anymore. And I'm sorry, but it's a myth.
Smash.
AI is, I think the potential is huge, and it's going to be a critical technology for us. It's going to make a lot of things that we do a lot easier over time. But in order for us to get to the promise that AI holds for marketing, we still have to do the hard work. If we don't have our data in order, what are we AIing if our data's a mess, right?
That is so true. I don't think people think about that, right? I think they think like the Terminator movies, either AI is going to wipe us all out, or AI is just going to go like one of those Disney movies where, Rob Williams is going to come around and just make our beds for us and cook us breakfast or something. Like, people don't realize that. So what does it take to even make AI work in the first place? You mentioned data being in order.
I mean, I think that's, first and foremost is you've got to have the right data in the right working order. And, a lot of surveys that we've done recently suggest that a staggering percentage of marketers either don't trust the data they have, or they don't feel like their data is in the right place in the organization for them to be able to leverage it to draw insights. I think it's something like 60% of marketers feel that way. Yeah. So,
and the rest are lying, right?
The rest are lying. My data is in perfect shape.
Oh yeah.
Said no one ever.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So Yeah. And so I think that, and I also want to make AIing a verb, right? That's a thing, right? We're all going to be AIing. And so if your data is not in position to be taken advantage of, to be able to provide insights, then AI initiatives are going to fail.
And insights, it's like pattern matching right now at this point, right? It's not like it knows anything. It's just looking for, hey, I noticed on this and this activity, like something happened. So it can be good if you've got the data, a lot of data for it to crunch through. But it's the whole phrase, garbage in, garbage out, right? It just.
Exactly. So unfortunately, we still have a lot of hard work to do to get to the position to be ready for AI.
Yeah. It drives me crazy too, because I think it's gotten a lot of play in the marketing world. Like, our fellow marketers are abusing the hell out of it, the word AI, like, oh, this app now has AI in it, so buy it. Don't worry. You don't know anything about optimizing Google ads? It's fine. AI will take care of you. You'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And that doesn't work, right? It's like, hey, let Google just write themselves a blank check for this ad campaign. Like, we should probably learn a little bit more about it before we leash that on the world. So true. smash that thing. AI is not, so we have to put in the hard work. You mentioned data is
Yeah.
important. Anything else we got to be thinking about when it comes to AI and just being ready for it?
Well, I think it also all has to start with understanding what are we trying to achieve from a customer experience standpoint, and have we done the hard work? And I just went through this process at Sitecore on my own marketing team, and so I can attest that it is very hard work to do the customer journey mapping and understand what are our customers trying to accomplish when they interact with us. What are they looking for? What do they want to see from a content perspective, from a customer relationship perspective? And I think a lot of times if we haven't done that hard work to understand who those customers are, then we make assumptions that end up being false. And so again, if we're trying to automate and add artificial intelligence to assumptions that are false to begin with, we're not going to come out on the winning end of that.
It's so true that you can make assumptions. We think we're the buyer, and that might be the case, but it very much might not be the case.
Yeah.
Like, seeing like an ad on, the Super Bowl ads and things like that, where you like, wow, those people wasted $1 million. Well, maybe, or maybe you're just not the target audience for who they were trying to reach out to. What kind of work did you do to prepare? You mentioned you just went through all the hard work to map out that customer journey. I mean, it's so important to do that. And it is work. How did you start? Like, what was even the first step for someone who hasn't done that yet?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is what Sitecore does for a business. And so for me, when I came into the role, it was super important for me as the CMO to have gone through the same process that all of our customers go through.
Oh, so
and
cool.
So we took a big step back, which was difficult to do because, the second I've never gone into a company and not had the CEO say to me within probably 24 hours of walking through the front door, oh, by the way, I hate our website. So what are you going to do about that? I've never not had that conversation with the CEO. And so the clock starts from the second the CEO says that you kind of in your head as CMO, you're hearing the clock start, right?
Yes.
And so it's very difficult to then go back to the CEO and the rest of the C-suite and say, yeah, agree, we're going to do some different things with our website. But by the way, I want to take 6 months, 8 months, 10 months to develop a digital transformation strategy and really understand what our customers are trying to achieve. And we could have a new website out in 3 or 4 months, but if we do all of this work and build the content structure to go with it, it's going to take 10, 11, 12 months. Difficult conversation to have.
Difficult, but important. I mean, how many times and I think, to be fair, people outside of marketing maybe think that sometimes they don't even know what marketing does. Like, you do the t-shirts and the website, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
But they're always saying, let's just redo the website, and I'm glad you didn't automatically go to that first. It's sometimes the lesser experienced marketers like, well, not sure what to do. I could learn about my customers, but that takes hard work. So let me just redesign the website.
Well, and I honestly, it comes from experience. I've done that in the past. In other roles, I think it's very difficult to go in and say it's going to take this amount of time. But in this case with Sitecore, I went in and said, look, this is the amount of time it's taking our customers to do this. So certainly you don't expect that we're able to do it any more quickly or with less strategy involved than what our customers are doing. And it was a really powerful conversation to have. And so we're about to go live with everything that we've done, or at least the first versions of some of the big stuff that we've done in July. And it turns out it was fine to take that time to do it, right? We've done it right, and it's going to be very powerful. But it starts with that journey mapping of really going through how are our customers interacting with us today across our digital channels. What are they trying to do versus what they're actually able to do? At what points are we failing them across the touch points and with the experience? And we actually did a very powerful thing where we worked with one of our agency partners, which is what most of our customers do. They work with an agency partner to do the strategy. And they put together this, it was almost we call it the tablecloth. It was a huge tapestry of the customer experience that showed the touch points and what customers were asking and what they were seeing and where the bottlenecks were. And we hung that tablecloth, huge tapestry in the office at Sitecore in San Francisco. And it became a gathering point for other members of the C-suite and of the company to really understand just how big this project was and how important it was from a customer strategy perspective.
Oh, wow. What was on that? Was it the whole journey mapped out?
It was, yeah, it was. I mean, it's. I'll send you a screenshot of it.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
It's literally a trajectory of different points of the website or digital channels, what customers were trying to do, what questions they were asking, and then a chart that showed kind of the highs and lows of the experience where they weren't getting what they wanted or where they were, and it enabled us to identify personas, identify what actions they were trying to achieve, and then take a step back and say, wait a minute, some of our assumptions were false here. And how are we going to correct this and build an experience and content and a strategy and a technology stack that enables us to meet the objectives that they're trying to achieve?
Right. Wow. How big was that? You said it was on the wall.
It was huge. I mean, I'm terrible at estimating distances, but I would say it was like, I don't know, 20 by 10.
Wow.
Huge. Yeah.
I love that though, because if you're going to put anything on the wall, you know, maybe not another motivational photo. Maybe it's actually the journey your customer's going on.
Yeah.
And then I can imagine the conversations that would start across different channels and talk about alignment. You know, if it's right there on the wall, it's everyone's business now, not just, you know, sales, marketing, or ops, anyone.
Yep, I knew we were onto something when I started seeing our chief customer officer bring either other customers, or a couple times we brought board members over, or the CEO would stop by, and it became this gathering spot for not only other C-suite executives, but people that were in visiting or just whomever to try to articulate the process that we were going through.
Man, I feel like I need to find a wall, you know?
Yeah. So tip number one, put it on the wall.
I love that. Put it, I mean, it's so simple, but so true. Put it on the wall. Do you revise it? Was it printed out on paper, or what happens if you fixed a particular gap? You know, how do you update that?
Well, we haven't done that yet. It's mostly, so we're going to roll out the website in July. And so I think that's a great idea for us to kind of overlay or put the next version of, here's how we addressed all of these points that we found along the journey.
Yeah. Like the next version of it. I mean, still be good to keep the old one, because then actually the contrast, you say, look, this is where we started. It's not an overnight process, but you know, we've identified this and this and this, and eventually it just gets so good. But it's still a good talking point. I could see why you just want to leave it up. We're
going to need a bigger wall for the new one.
We're going to need a bigger wall. That sounds like a start to many a good conversation.
It does.
Bigger wall here, guys. Now, you mentioned digital transformation. Is that the same thing of what you just did? Because I hear digital transformation a lot these days, and I'm trying to figure out where that even came from.
Yeah, well, I don't know where it came. I think where it came from is the customer basically saying, you know, companies better get their acts together, because I expect all my experiences to be like Amazon and Apple and Starbucks, right?
True.
So I think that the shift to digital has caused this massive disruption that pretty much at this point is across every industry. And I think it's moved from probably 5 years ago or so to customer experience becoming a buzz term and a nice to have. And now it's mission critical. If you're not focused on digital transformation and putting the customer at the center of your business, you're probably on the way to going out of business.
I that makes sense. Is digital transformation everything, or is it, you know, in your
everything?
Thought, no. Just everything. Like, oh yeah, you're making sure your customer's blood type is on your CRM. That goes, you know, like,
that might be a little creepy.
That might be creepy. Unless you're a hospital, in which case
exactly. Unless you're in healthcare, and it might even still be creepy.
It's probably still creepy, and HIPAA and all that. But how do you focus your attention on what is a digital transformation, do you think?
Well, and I think it depends on what business you're in. You've got to kind of start with understanding, you know, what business are you in? What are your customers' expectations of doing business with you? What are you trying to provide for them? And so how are you going to craft the experience that's tailored to that top level business strategy?
Right. Right.
And I think it's most of the companies that I talk to today, they've kind of moved past thinking, all right, well, we have to evolve to digital and make that part of our strategy. They're now saying, no, we have to be a digital first business. The majority of our business is going to come from digital channels as we go forward. And that's just a massive shift.
It's crazy though, because I kind of feel like the digital transformation that I'm aware of was when people stopped relying completely on billboards and magazines and things they couldn't track and started, I don't know, having a website and doing some paid search and those kind of things. And then there's another transformation to marketing automation and getting some nurturing going. And is digital transformation just kind of cluing in people that haven't made any of those journeys to make those, or?
I think that's all part of it, but I think it's more that there's this recognition that, I was at a great CMO event in Boston last week, and one of the CMOs there, who works with a great brand, TJ Maxx, and she was just happened to be at this roundtable that I was moderating, and she said the consumer, digital's not a strategy or a tactic; it's what the consumer is. And so it's really just that fundamental. The consumer today expects to be able to interact with every brand that they want to interact with on their mobile device, on their computer, in the store, and they expect those transactions and those interactions to be seamless and continuous, to pick up right where they left off.
Yeah, the seamless and continuous. I mean, how many times do we fill out something somewhere and then someone asks us the same question?
Right.
Like, I already told you that. Why are you asking me again?
Right.
Or when you call into the bank and they want your account number, and if you actually know it, no one does, but they type it in, and then you get on the phone and they're like, okay, so what's your account number? Like, I just told you I told the phone that.
Well, and that's back to data silos and AI, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to automate any of those transactions if you don't have your data consolidated and integrated. That's a perfect example of, all right, so they've got an automated phone system. They're trying to make it easier, reduce the call center staff, be able to have consumers punch things in, but they're failing because the second you have to repeat that information, it tells you their data is not integrated across their departments.
Totally. I once had a bank call me and ask me to validate my account. I was like, don't you know about phishing scams? And it actually turned out to actually be the bank. And
wow.
I was like, you guys just don't randomly call someone out of the blue and say, hey, can confirm your account for me. What's your last four and what's your, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. How do I know that you're actually this bank? Like,
wow.
Crazy.
Fail,
right? So, but back to digital transformation, I think I'm kind of getting the picture now. It's being more intentional about what's happening. It's not just kind of like trying to play catch up or thinking it's just part of, it's like a nice buzzword. It's like, it is what the consumer is now. It is, your customer is there. That's what they're expecting, the seamless transition. So you need to be intentional about making sure that that's what the experience they're having.
But it could be about playing catch up, because I think I think it's about meeting the consumer where they are. And many businesses are not yet fully digital or haven't transformed enough of their business to be able to meet the consumer where they are. And so those businesses are playing catch up, but it's a mission critical priority for pretty much every company I talk to. I can't remember the last time I talked to a company that said, or interacted with a CMO or a marketer that said, yeah, no, digital transformation, just not something we're thinking about. No, we have to be a digital first business. It's a mission critical strategy that's being driven from the top down. Or if it's not being driven from the top down, it's marketing desperately trying to figure out, how do I get the company's attention around this, because we're missing the boat.
Right. Getting the whole company's attention, because it's like all hands on deck for this. It's not just one siloed department.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. I love that you said it's meeting the consumer where they're at, meeting the customer, the consumer, the client, whoever you're selling to. Where are they at? As opposed to where do you think you're at? It's not the emails in the old days saying, check out our brand new website. It's like, where are you at? What can we offer you to help you out?
Exactly.
Love it. I know we were chatting earlier and you mentioned that you've got a sales kickoff coming up, and it just kind of stirs up for me the questions around marketing and sales alignment and what part you play. I mean, you're in marketing. What does the sales kickoff mean to you? And tell me about the alignment.
Yeah, and I think that's another great marketing myth that I'm sure has been smashed on the show, hopefully many times
Smash away. You
before.
still have
Yeah,
the hammer, right?
but I think that it's absolutely, to me, a myth that marketing and sales are they struggle to get alignment. And I think that, sure, that probably exists in some companies, but not companies that are focused on putting the customer first. And I think it all maps back to digital transformation. Marketing and sales it's a partnership that has to flow smoothly in order for the company to be successful. And so I think it's priority number 1, 2, and 3 to make sure that you're fully aligned with the sales team. Now, that doesn't mean that marketing becomes an order taker to sales. We've got to be sitting at the table from a strategic standpoint, helping the sales team have the right collateral in market, have the right message in market, understand how to best position the product at the right time, understand what our competitors are saying, and many of those important critical functions, as well as the kind of the age old give me leads, give me leads, give me leads. Right. So it's a partnership, and I think there's a strategic conversation and agreement that has to exist between the CMO and the CRO in order to kind of facilitate that as a well-oiled machine. And so the sales kickoff, to me, means it's an opportunity to go in and just kind of, you should be rechecking that alignment on a, at least a monthly, quarterly, whatever frequency basis. But there's a big recheck that goes on in the prep that leads towards sales kickoff, where you really have the opportunity to stretch across the entire business and say, what big bets are we making for the coming fiscal year? And are we aligned on those? And are we building out the right programs to map to what you're planning in the field? Now, how do we get the field excited about that? And marketing should be a huge part of getting the field excited about what's happening in the coming year.
And you get the field excited, they're going to actually utilize the things you spent time creating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if they're not, we're just wasting our time. I don't want to be talking to myself is always one of my favorite expressions, right? If we're just throwing things over the wall and, all right, great, gave sales that, we're done. Well, we're probably talking to ourselves. We've got to go many steps further to make sure that we're delivering the right thing at the right time and that it's being utilized.
Right. I think I saw a stat about 70% came out, content that goes unused. You spend all this time either writing it or something, and it never sees the light of day. It just sits there somewhere. And it's like, it could be so helpful. Hopefully it's helpful stuff. And if sales is stoked about it, they understand that you created this for them, it's going to help that customer, then they're more likely to bring that up in conversation and actually activate it, utilize that information.
Absolutely. And I think content is another, it's a big topic that we could have a whole show devoted to. It's marketers have got to get out of the hamster wheel of just creating content that no one even looks at. We're not measuring the effectiveness of it. We don't know who's consuming it. And yet we're just off to create more content. It's not efficient. It's not scalable.
Boom. You need to drop the mic at that point, because that was brilliant. That was brilliant. Right. The hamster wheel of content creation. It's like break free of that. I think that was almost like this catch up, like overreaction where no one had enough content. And now it's like, now we have enough content, but no one's looking at it. It's not even good content. I once bumped into a large financial firm who was sort of bragging about their content piece. They had paid an attorney in New York City to like $1,000 an hour to write this white paper, and apparently it was like 26 pages long. And I had to wonder like what this guy's word per minute was, because I'm like, that's a great job. Like,
seriously. Well, that sounds like 26 white papers, not one white paper.
It sure does. But I asked him, I was like, what pain does this solve for your customer? What questions does this address? And like all the heads went down in the room, and looking away, crickets, tumbleweed went by in the background, and they realized like, and they hadn't really approached it that way. They were just trying to create something cool, spend that budget. Like, so they repurposed some of it, but it was like a real big warning sign not to do that.
Yeah. No one's going to read beyond the first page.
True. Yeah. True. Yeah. You kind of break it down and simplify it. To your point, maybe there's a couple pages there that, each one could be its own special element.
Although the way that our attention spans are evolving and content is evolving, I think we're going to lose the ability to read relatively soon. maybe in our lifetime.
What'd you say?
Everything. Yeah.
I was
Well,
playing
no,
Sudoku just now, so I don't know.
exactly.
So true. Do you think it's going that way to the point
No,
where?
I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that my own personal attention span, if it's not consumable, I've got so many different things happening at any given time. I'm looking to scan, I'm looking for insights to jump out at me.
Yeah.
I want to see a graphic. I want to watch a quick video. I don't have time to consume, certainly not a 26-page white paper, much less a 10-page white paper.
Yeah. It's almost like white papers. I don't say it's a dirty word, but it's like this. It's like back in the day when the number of pages was how important your paper was, and now it's like if you see 27 on there, you're probably gonna just dump it because it's too long anyway. You just don't want to
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder about podcasts these days and webinars and entertainment. And I think even like people listening to this now, either they're Andy's riding his cycle to work and he's listening to this, or Leanne's in her car on the way to work. It's like those commutes where you're, at least for me, I'm a captive audience. I'm doing my driving thing, and eventually my Tesla will drive itself. But I'm captive audience. I'm not focused on anything else. But otherwise, that book, maybe a book's good for vacation time, but some people prefer words, but for me, it's a challenge.
Agree. I mean, I listen to podcasts on my commute. I take the public transit about an hour to work each way every day, and I mostly listen to music and podcasts. Often I'm in a crowded car and I can't jostle a book, even if I wanted to. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the people that I see on 93 going into Boston with a book on their steering wheel, it's like, please switch to audiobooks.
That's frightening.
Yeah, seriously. And by the way, there's this really cool podcast you should listen to called Hardcore Marketing.
Oh, I've heard about that. I hear that the guests on that are just absolutely fantastic.
They're fantastic. They're so full of knowledge you would not believe. Crazy. So I want to go back to the kickoff. So you mentioned what an interesting thought. I'd never really considered. It's a great. I mean, it's a big deal for sales. Like it's their chance to recalibrate everybody. But it's also can be marketing's chance to recalibrate with sales, knowing
Absolutely.
it's that important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's you've got to take the opportunity. You've got your entire sales team captive, for lack of a better word, and they're hungry for what's going to come next. What's the new thing I can put in my sales bag? What's the new message? How am I going to position this? How am I going to have a breakout year so that I can go to club next year if I'm not able to go this year? And how is marketing going to help me achieve my number? And you really want to take that opportunity from a marketing perspective, I think, to partner very closely with your sales peers to get them super excited about, wow, there's so much coming out of marketing this year. It's just going to be an amazing year at the company. I'm so happy to be here. And wow, it's really a fantastic set of campaigns and collateral, and marketing department's really rocking it. And wow, Sitecore is amazing, or whatever company I'm at. And that's, I think, a big part of setting up that sales psyche to approach the coming year. Marketing should have a huge part of that.
Yeah, and I can see the excitement in sales' face, and as you're describing that, it's like they have a partner in crime, right? They have a wingman or woman. They've got someone in their corner that's given them all these things to help support them, and it's all aligned to the same mission, as opposed to some other wonky, oh, I sent leads over, I hope you can convert them. It's like,
good luck.
Together, right? Yeah. Good luck. It's an MQL. You're responsible.
Yeah. Well, another myth that we need to smash is nobody cares about the MQL. That's the truth. That's not a myth. It's, marketers have got to stop touting their MQLs.
Tell me about that.
The rest of the business doesn't care about your MQLs. I'm sorry. I care about MQLs as the CMO, and I want to make sure we've got a healthy flow of MQLs. But what I care about is marketing sourced pipeline with a dollar value associated with it, how much revenue we closed that was attributable to marketing. And we've got to align with sales on that measure. At Sitecore, we are measured on revenue and on dollar value attributed to marketing. And it just drives a much healthier conversation with our sales peers. I just couldn't go into any more companies and have eye rolling amongst the exec team and the CRO in particular when I talk about, wow, we generated 50,000 MQLs last quarter. It was amazing. Yeah, but the conversion rate on them was like 1%. So who cares?
Terrible. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for those horrible leads.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. I'll never get those years of my life back that I spent on those crappy leads, right?
Yeah. And that's that cyclic complaint cycle where they're saying, marketing, I need more leads. Marketing reduces the quality, gives them more leads. And they're like, marketing, these leads suck. And then marketing gets you more of them. Like, it's just this,
right.
You can't play that game. It's like a zero sum. You don't win that game. You got to switch to revenue.
Yeah. You've got to put it into language that the business cares about.
Ooh, I like that.
Or you just, you're as marketing, you're just wasting your time. You're never going to convince the business to care about MQLs.
Right. And whether you're perceiving it or not, you're at the eye rolling.
Yep.
The CEO, he's looking at, or she's looking at, they're all looking at revenue. It doesn't really matter what these, especially when you throw out some term, like you've invented some term. Oh, we've got 30 billion impressions. Okay. Does that feed my family? Like, what's going on? I actually had this thought the other day too, because I was thinking about MQLs as well, and I'm glad you just don't even. I mean, you're right. You care.
I do measure them. It's a sign of a healthy flow, top of funnel.
Flow, right? That interstitial metric showing you things are progressing, but at the same time, in between sales and marketing is sending over to sales. It's very deceiving because I think even the word qualified lead, marketing qualified lead, it's like marketers were saying that we've qualified this. First of all, do we even know what qualified means to sales? And I've had some great chats with BDR managers, and there's a real work to go into qualifying a lead. So
right.
Might be at the minimum pre-qualified if we're asking some questions that maybe sales has asked us to. But it's like PQML. It's definitely not qualified. Like, how I would not want to stamp my name next to something that I think is the right fit, not like. And I think that kind of that gets to that misalignment where we're saying this is qualified and it's like not even close to qualified. That hurts our reputation.
Totally agree. And it's the fact that you even have to have the difference between a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead, I think underscores that point perfectly. We should just call them leads. That's what they are. They're leads. They're suspects. Yeah,
you're right. And like, the percentage from marketing qualified leads to sales qualified leads, we lose about 30% of the leads. Well,
no,
I guess
more than that.
Or more than that. I guess our definition's not really correct then in terms of what qualified is.
Exactly. Well, Serious Decisions would say, I think that a best-in-class organization, the conversion between MQL and SQL is about, 15, 20%. So you're losing 80% of them.
And that right there is the problem, right? If we're sending something over and we're saying it's qualified, then ouch.
Right.
You want that to be like 100 or really close. We're like, oh, okay, we'll tweak the measurement, come on, people.
Yeah, exactly.
When you came into your role at Sitecore, you mentioned how, there's a lot of different influences. They're like, ooh, what are we going to do in this tactic or this tactic? And you had this sort of strategic sense to understand what was happening. If I were to ask you, what's your overall approach to marketing? What's your overall strategy? What is that, and what kind of steps do you take at the very beginning of that process?
Yeah, I think it's alignment is a word that I probably, I use that word a lot. I probably overuse it, but I think it's a really important word. And so when I come into a new role, hopefully you've already learned a great deal during the interview process. I try to ask a similar set of questions to the people that I'm interviewing on the way in, so that literally, before I decide I'm going to accept the job, I've got a pretty good sense of, what does this company need? What are they expecting the CMO to do? There's a great series of articles that the Harvard Business Review did sometime last year about the reasons that the CMO fails so often. And it was a great stat that came out of that. It said 80% of CEOs are either unimpressed with or don't trust their CMO.
Oh, damn.
So you're like, what?
Damn.
That's crazy. And the reason is because there are so many different things or expectations that a CMO could have put on them, or different needs that a business has from the CMO, more so than any other role. There's just a wide variation in what the CMO could be expected to focus on. And so I think it's just critically important, from even before deciding you're going to accept the job, you better be really sure that the things the company wants or needs are in your wheelhouse and in your passion house. And so I think it starts during that process. And then when you get into the company, things will shift subtly. They might not have given you a 100% accurate picture, believe it or not, during the interview. Shocking.
Imagine that. Shocking.
So you've got to kind of reconfirm those priorities. And if you're lucky, and I don't think I've ever gone through the process that I go through when I go into a company of going around and talking to as many people as possible and not had some overwhelming consensus from the internal and external people as to what needs to happen. And so that makes the job a lot easier if you just listen to what those audiences are telling you about what the priorities need to be. Go through the process to, I think in the case of Sitecore, I talked to about 75 employees, partners, customers, industry analysts, et cetera, and asked them a common set of questions around, what do you see with Sitecore today? What are our differentiators? What do we need to focus on from a marketing perspective? What would you do if you were me coming into this role? And a very clear picture emerges when you do that extent of interviews and conversations that you can then go back and align with the CEO, the rest of the C-suite, the board, as you map out your plans.
That's amazing. How many of those 75 were before being hired?
None.
Okay. But you had interviews and you were asking similar questions. So then
it was a different process once I started. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. But throughout the thing, it's almost like you got in there, and what a cool reminder that we're vetting the role just as much as it's vetting us. Do I want to work in this company? But also, what are the expectations of the leadership? What are they expecting me to do, and make sure they're in your wheelhouse? It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think you have to do that. And, I haven't always had the courage to walk away from roles that I thought might not be a match, but I certainly have it now. I mean, this last interview process that I went through, I was very fortunate I took off about 6 months, which was life-changing. Everyone should do that anytime they can. And I said no to a half a dozen CMO jobs that I thought, this just doesn't feel like the right fit. And at times I thought, wow, what am I doing? I don't have another job lined up. I'm taking time off. Is this the right thing for me to do? But it ended, and it resulted in, I think, the best possible fit for me from a professional standpoint. And it can be very hard to find the courage to do that, because you've got a job and they're offering it to you and you should take it and get started, right?
Look at all this money. But then, you're up by the pool, you have another sip of that pina colada. You're like, well, maybe I'll get the next one. This isn't exactly a good fit.
Well, there's that part of it too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 95 degrees here in Pleasanton, California today. So
95. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, we're all snowmen over here.
Yeah.
Frozen to the ground.
Really? It's still cold there?
No, I don't know. It's probably, it's fine outside, but
okay.
When in doubt, it's colder here than anywhere else.
Yeah, true.
Except for Canada. So I like that. It's important to do that too. And the 75 that or so analysts, employees, you're listening to people.
Yeah.
So cool that you didn't start by just talking. You started by gathering all this data.
Yeah, don't ever do. And I think the other thing that it does too is it's pretty powerful to go sit in front of your peers in the C-suite and the board of directors and the rest of the employees and say, here's what I heard from 75 people that I talked to all around the world. And the conclusions were pretty universal in a couple of different areas. And so I'd like to build those into our marketing strategies. Any questions? No, I didn't think so.
Right. And it's like, here's what I've heard. And it's almost like in those situations, a lot of people know what's wrong. And many people can even share it. And it just takes someone to say, I've heard it, and we're actually going to do this. As a new role, new person in the company, change is coming. And I've listened, and the people here, you've experienced these things, and we're going to put an end to this. And I know how to approach it that way now.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. Well, Who are you? How did you become this oracle of marketing knowledge? Like, take us back to, little Paige growing up. Did you know you were going to be in marketing?
Definitely not. I was on a television, like one of these little kids television shows when I was little. It's called the Peggy Mitchell Show.
Wow.
And she asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said I wanted to be a veterinarian.
Of course.
And which I don't think that lasted. I love animals and dogs in particular. But no, for most of my high school career, I wanted to be a writer. And then when I got into college, I briefly thought I wanted to go into politics and maybe be a lobbyist.
Oh boy!
But I did an internship at the Kentucky State Senate, and was very quickly disabused of that notion. It's like, wow, I probably wouldn't do well with all of the craziness that goes on in politics.
Jeez. And now, do you went to school for politics?
I was a political. I have a degree in political science, and I completed all the coursework towards a master's in political theory.
Wow.
And then started a PhD program at NYU in media ecology, which was just kind of another version of political science for kind of communications and culture. And then I thought I wanted to teach college, which was why I did the master's and the PhD. Yeah. And I kind of stumbled into high tech. I didn't even know what it was, but I found myself in I think the lesson here is make bold moves. You never know how it's going to pan out. Do things that scare you. But I was a PhD student at NYU, and I was looking for a part-time job. And I got connected through another student in the program to this high-tech public relations agency. I didn't even know what that was. What's public relations? What's high-tech? Right? I'm a 26-year-old or 25-year-old career student at this point. Right? The only job I'd ever had was bartending and going to school. And I went in to interview at this high-tech PR agency, and they had two clients, Sony and IBM, they had many others, but those were their two big marquee clients. And it was in the 90s, right when the internet was starting to become a thing that corporations were paying attention to. And I got so excited when I went in for this interview that I thought it was for a part-time job, and they thought they were interviewing me for a full-time job. And then I was really disappointed that, oh, wow, they don't need anybody part-time. I literally went in the next day and quit the PhD program and went back to the agency and said, I hope you're going to hire me because I'm prepared to quit my program to come work here.
What about that experience excited you that day? I mean, you shifted hardcore at that moment.
Yeah. I mean, it was literally, it was just, again, it was, I don't know, because I didn't even really know what I was hearing through most of the interviews, because I didn't know what public relations was. I didn't, right. I heard of marketing. I kind of knew what marketing was. And it just all seemed so exciting. There was a buzz in the office. There were a lot of young people that were working there that I met with and talked with. The things they were doing that they were talking about for their clients, IBM and Sony, just seemed very exciting. I've been studying in my classes the fact that corporations were starting to realize that there was a revenue potential that was going to be associated with internet and online, because literally nothing had happened yet, right? Mark Andreessen was at school in the University of Chicago inventing the browser, right? That's what was happening. Like, it was on the cover of Wired while all this was happening.
NetSuite, right? And
there was no Netscape yet. There was no Netscape. Netscape came into formation, I think, like a year or two later. Jeez. But the professors were all talking about the fact that corporations were going to realize the money-making potential here, and they were lamenting the fact that it was going to ruin the internet as an educational source. And so I literally 1 week was writing papers railing against corporate America for ruining the spirit of free idea exchange on the internet. No. And the next week I went to work for the IBM Internet division. Right. So it was, wow. Yeah.
That's amazing. And to your point, make bold moves. You heard something. You think it was maybe even the potential. You're hearing like, this is the now moment. Here's something I need to grab. It's like almost like I don't know what it is, but I want to be a part of it.
That's exactly what it was. There was a buzz and an excitement in that office that people were a part of. They were all super excited. The professors were talking about the fact that it was bad, so it kind of was appealing from that perspective.
Right. Right. You can't date that person, you can't go in the military. All these don't do this. And it's like, maybe I should check that out.
Exactly. And, I had realized that I didn't want to teach college. I was an undergrad TA for the semester.
Sure.
And, I'm just a person that I get bored very quickly. I want things to be changing, moving all the time. And I realized that being a college professor wasn't going to be things moving all the time.
The opposite.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. The question I had though, because you had all this study in poli-sci, and I mean, I don't think I even ever took any classes in that. I gotta wonder, do you feel any of those effects in your marketing career, in your business career? Did you get anything from there that you've sort of maybe subtly used and you don't even realize, or maybe intentionally used?
Yeah. I think political science and political theory are hugely applicable to corporate culture.
Oh,
you
cool.
just think about all the dynamics that go on. I mean, I spent 10 years at Oracle, a long time ago. Oracle
survived.
10 years is right. I mean, you always ask somebody, how long were you at Oracle? And then you get a true sense of, kind of what they were able to do there. And 10 years is a long time. And big corporate environments like that, not just Oracle, but been in many other environments as well, understanding the motivations of people and what's on their agenda and how they're trying to operate either, behind the scenes or in the public face of the company. I feel like everything I learned about political theory and political science and just the demographics of people and personalities and leadership styles set me up very well to be able to navigate those environments.
That's amazing. I would buy your book when you write it about that topic. Poli-sci, business, and marketing.
That's a great book idea. I'm trying to figure out what my book idea is. I've got a couple of candidates. That's a good one. I never thought about that one.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I've had this told to me too. The unique abilities that we have are often things we just completely disregard and take for granted. It's like, doesn't everyone know that? And apparently they don't. And so when you mentioned some of these things, I was like, oh yeah, how would you navigate that? And sometimes the challenges I have is with, influential power versus positional power. Just the idea of, if you can't absolutely control a situation, how do you influence the situation? And, I'm not necessarily good at that. So it'd be one of those things that I would want to read and understand, how do you learn more about what people are looking for? But I could see how understanding people's motivations then ties back into marketing as well.
Absolutely. I mean, just from a understand people's motivations perspective, there's always something you can align with someone on. And so if you understand what's motivating them and you know what your agenda is, figure out where's the common ground there and then partner with them on that.
I'd never heard that before. There's always something you can align with someone on.
Always. We're people.
Common ground. There's common ground somewhere. Absolutely. Huh. Really interesting. Thinking about this whole career and how this is like morphed and shifted, if you were to give advice to yourself at the very beginning of your marketing career, your business, PR as well, like, going back to that self that just quit the program and is getting started, what would you tell yourself? What would you advise yourself?
I mean, I think there was a lot of angst and hand-wringing that went on as I made those decisions. And I think I've been relatively bold throughout my career, but I would have told myself, be bolder. What else could you do? Because I think, when you're young and you've got a lot of opportunities presented to you, don't be afraid to latch onto them. It's going to work out. And there aren't really the only bad decision you can make in those kinds of situations is doing nothing.
Right. Just sitting on your hands, the status quo. And I think sometimes people forget that's an option. Like doing nothing.
That's a decision.
It's right. It's a decision. You're actually deciding whether you acknowledge it or not to do nothing.
Yeah. So
it sounds like your career has been all these different points in time where you've continued to be bold and you would just tell yourself, do that more.
I mean, I remember when I moved from, I grew up in Kentucky and I moved from Lexington, Kentucky to Manhattan when I was 25.
What was that like?
Well, and I think it's a great example of it. I think I was 25 years old and it was absolutely terrifying. I'd always said, even from the time I was in middle school, I would say to my parents, I'm going to move to New York or California. turns out I did both. And, and so I got accepted into the PhD program at NYU and just couldn't believe it. It was exciting, exhilarating. But as the months started to tick down to the move, I was absolutely terrified. And it would have been so much easier not to go. It would have been so easy not to go.
Yeah, just stay in school and do the political thing. Maybe not ultimately being happy because you weren't doing the thing that you would have been great at, what you're doing now, right? So you're right. It's so. Yeah. Any thoughts? How do you be bolder? Because I think you've got bold in spades. So if somebody doesn't really have it.
Well, I think it's less about, you want to make a thoughtful decision, of course, so you have to think about it. But then at a certain point, make your decision and then stop thinking about it and just do it. It's kind of like exercise, right? I mean, there's always a reason not to go to the gym. And if you just shut off that talk track and go to the gym and you do that, for a couple of weeks in a row, well, then you've got a new habit. It's this exact same mindset and discipline when you're trying to make a bold decision that you're scared of. Make the decision, decide that's what you want to do, have a thoughtful process around that, and then shut off the thinking and just execute it.
Right. Don't continue the analysis mode ad nauseum. Like, do your thinking, decide, and then commit. Just get into it and don't look back.
Absolutely.
Love that. Where are you going to be at? Actually, before we get to that, so Sitecore, what's the latest, greatest with that? Because I bumped into it. I'm in New Hampshire, and I know there's an office, and
there is, yeah.
What are you seeing now? What are you experiencing with that?
Yeah, I mean, Sitecore has just been, I think I mentioned this already. I don't know that I could have found a more perfect fit for me, just in terms of the company's technology, which I've got experience in and I'm super passionate about. The company is just on a kind of a rocket ship growth trajectory, so it's really fun to be part of that. We're in a mission critical market at the center of digital transformation, which, as we've talked about, is a kind of an imperative that businesses have to go through with. And we've got an amazing group of people on the leadership team. Our CEO he's very forward thinking. This is a CEO who in less than a year has hired 4 female C-level executives into the company. I don't know that you could name another company in tech or of our size or really many sizes that have made that kind of a bold move from a women in tech perspective. So it's a privilege to be part of his management team and to be just, on this ride that Sitecore is on. And we're very excited about and committed to helping drive this whole movement towards customer experience, customer first, not only for our own customers, but within our own business. So being part of that kind of a growth and a transformation is it's super exciting.
Where do you see it going for Sitecore?
And I think the sky's the limit, right? I think we're in a very fortunate position to be able to decide what our destiny is from a growth perspective. And so we're just focused on continuing to innovate with the technology and transform our business to be more customer first and hire the best people possible and hope that our results will speak for themselves.
Right. Yeah, makes sense. Are you going to be at any events coming up? Anything we should keep our eyes open for?
Where am I going to? Well, tomorrow there's a great CMO event happening in San Francisco that I'm going to be at, put on by Aventa and Gartner. But yeah, I've got a couple of I think European speaking engagements happening at the big DeMexico show happening in I think September. We're doing a couple of customer events in Sydney and Singapore that I'll be attending, and I think that's kind of the near term.
Singapore is fantastic.
I don't think I've done Singapore the right way. I was in Singapore for the first time a couple of months ago, and I didn't have much time to do much outside of work. And then I watched the movie Crazy Rich Asians as I was leaving Singapore, and I thought, wow, I did it wrong. I mean, I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, where was that? Yeah, no. Right. So for me, it was a distributor training, and we had some local team members, and so they were taking us around. And I remember one experience though was we're in the van with he drove us in this parking garage, and then up to like the 5th level, and there's this door to a restaurant that wasn't even marked. You walk in, and this is dim sum, massive place, but it's where all the locals were eating. And I couldn't even tell you what it was called or how to find it. It was one of those secrets. And then on the river at night with all the lights, and But yeah, so it sounds like you need a redo of that.
I'm going to get one. So now I've seen Crazy Rich Asians, so I know what to do.
Oh man, it's gonna be dangerous when you get there now. That's fantastic. Cool. Where can people connect with you? What are some of the, LinkedIn, is that a good place? Twitter?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty active on social. I think should be a huge part of any marketer or CMO's engagement. And, I think one thing too is LinkedIn. I don't know that everyone realizes the potential of it for community engagement from an employee perspective, from a partner and customer perspective. I spend a lot of time thinking about the fact that I've got a lot of people in my LinkedIn network, and from a Sitecore and a thought leadership perspective, what do we want to say to those people on that channel? So yeah, LinkedIn is a big place to reach me. I'm fairly active on Twitter as well. I do some photography on the side just as a hobby. And so I've got a website for that as well. So
what's it called?
It's PaigeO'Neill.com.
Okay.
Very original.
Well, it's the best name you could have picked.
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of photography?
Yeah, it evolves over time. I am into kind of a hybrid of street and travel photography right now.
Wow.
A lot of traveling, as you would expect, and just looking at candid street scenes and interesting stuff,
especially from other countries. I love, because the brands are something you're not familiar with, and it's almost like all the stuff we phase out locally, we're now being exposed to it at a different place. And I'll definitely check that out. That's fascinating. Get the little snapshot into
I just got back from Japan, and it was amazing street photography there.
Wow.
So
what part of Japan were you in?
I was in Tokyo and Kyoto.
Yeah, I've been to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Big fan of Tokyo as well.
Yeah.
Very different culture. It's fascinating.
Yeah. It really is.
Yeah. Did you navigate the subway?
I did. I felt I navigated it quite successfully.
Now, have they changed the signs? Because when I was there many moons ago, all the station names, they weren't like transliterated. They were just in kanji. And so you had to sort of, the hotel map would have it transliterated. So you this is this station, and you map, count the dots between where you're at to where you need to get off.
Well, I read fluent kanji, so I didn't have any issue. I'm kidding.
You almost got me there. I was like, oh my gosh.
No, yeah, they've changed that quite substantially.
Have they?
And pretty much everything is in English on at least the main train lines. So it's pretty easy to navigate.
I'm almost a little disappointed, because it was kind of fun standing there with a coworker just being like, what? And then some guy came up to us and said, are you lost? Do you speak English? And we were like, yes, and yes. It helped us out. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
I've learned so much from you, and I literally have I've run out of paper. Writing in the margins and everything. And I get a sense that your approach to LinkedIn is probably something we'd chat about. Maybe check in at some point later on and check again, and some of these things that we could learn more about. But this has been awesome.
Well, thanks so much. And you've given me a great idea for a book, so I need to think about that.
Oh, please. And then sign me up. I will pre-purchase it right now on Amazon.
So I've got my first sale. It's very exciting.
Hey, it's market tested now. Perfect. You should totally do it.
Exactly.
This is fantastic. So everyone out there listening, if you've learned something, and I know you have, because I certainly have, share this with someone else, and that's how you and everyone listening can become your own thought leader, sharing the things that you've learned and the things that we've learned today. So fantastic. Paige, thank you again.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show, everybody. We will catch you all next time.